you were around
Right.
a lot of like really interesting people, and notorious people. Like what year did you start?
First open mic was December of 89.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Wait, 89 or 88? I can't remember. I know I quit my day job in 91. So yeah, it was December of 88 because I was doing open mic about 2 years.
That's why I wasn't born yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally do. I do shows with comics who my career is literally older than.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is disturbing and also yet very fortunate. Like I never thought when I quit my day job, I never thought I was going to be doing this long. I thought this was going to be my backpacking through Europe. You know what I mean? Like that thing that you do for a couple of years, and I'd always have that story that I was a road
Was there
comedian.
ever did anyone have that mindset that this was something you would do long term?
I think people did.
Okay.
Because so back then it was very different. You know, if you got the Tonight Show or if you got one of the late night. Now late night there's so many late night shows. Well, back then there was Carson and Letterman was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. And so if you got either one of those, you could reasonably say that you could be in comedy long term.
Yeah.
Now there's just no calling. There's no way of really knowing, right? Because if you get Colbert, it's a good bump. It's helpful, but it doesn't have that impact that Carson had. And so comics actually thought if I could just get a 5-minute set on a late night show, that could write a ticket.
Wasn't that sort of Hedberg's obsession too? Like I read somewhere that he was always obsessed about getting the perfect tape for late night.
I think that was a little bit overblown.
Okay.
Because when he started, he wasn't, because I watched a booker one time sit there and tell him all these things, and we all knew in the back that he was funny, right? But he wasn't what we all know him to be. His setups were longer. His jokes weren't as quick. He had stories in the set. Anyway, but we all knew, like, wow, this guy looks at the world differently than we do. This guy's really funny. Yeah. But I sat there one time after an open mic and watched this booker tell him, you need to look up more and look at the audience, and you should probably smile more. Smile when you deliver your jokes. And back then his hair was like really, really long. And maybe cut your hair. It looks a little feminine. And we're sitting there going, are you serious? You want him to be the rest of us? You're trying to make him to us. Why don't you tell him to put on a blazer and a bolo tie and talk about airline food? Like they were literally like. And so, Mitch knew that he could do those things. He was funny enough that he would have gotten a late night show sooner. Yeah. So, in my opinion, I don't think he was that hungry for that. I shouldn't say that because we actually talked a lot about getting on TV, and one time we had a gig and we had a long drive and we were talking about it. And he said, I think you're onto something. He said, I think being clean is the way to go because there's more places you can be on TV. And it was a very interesting concept. So I know he was thinking about it, but I don't think he was, because if he was really obsessed with it, he wouldn't have done what he did. Yeah. But what happened was, so he and a comic named Chard Hogan, they spent a summer, they bought a cheap van, mm-hmm. and they spent a summer driving around the country. They booked a few gigs at whatever they could book, and then they would do guest sets and ask them if you like either one of us or open mics, can we MC, one of us MC or both of us do a set on the weekend for some money? And they did this, and it was intense and difficult. And at times they literally walked in the restaurant to say, can we wash dishes to get something to eat? Like it was really stressful. But
how old were they at the time?
Oh man, I think Mitch was, I think he and I are about the same age. So he was probably 25 maybe, and Chard was about the same.
And I mean, this is just so, in general, comedy is disorganized. Like the industry of comedy, like it's Facebook groups and and old websites and things like, to be doing this at that time.
Well, and this is before any of that. Yeah, no. So they are phone calling places ahead of time, or just showing up at clubs.
To even get the number is a pain in the ass.
Exactly right. They had to find the number. They had to call comics they knew in areas like, where can we go? Oh, there's this club. Here's the phone number. Here's the booker. Try and call them. And then you leave a message or get busy signals. Like it was old school trying to book gigs. Yeah. And so they went on this run. And so what happened is that Mitch realized that people would give them attention because it was like, wow, you guys are driving around a van trying to get work in comedy. Okay, I'll watch you. But he noticed that they would only watch about a minute. And then so he had to figure out how to get punchlines in a minute.
Yeah.
And that's where he started to develop the Mitch that we know. Yeah. Because he was like, I need to get work. So he and Chard were both punchline heavy. Just hit punchlines those first minute. Yeah,
super tight.
You got to, because they weren't watching after a minute.
Was he like pretty analytical and like because I heard Attell talking about him once and having like his work ethic with comedy, like how much. Like he always was writing and had like these weird, obscure like drawings and things like that. Like what was his, like, was he always grinding and like working or
constantly? Yeah. Really? He was always, everything meant something to him. Like one of my favorite jokes of his, because, I'm Hawaiian, so I eat rice all the time. It's his rice joke, right? Yeah. Rice is great if you're not that hungry, but you want to eat 1,000 of something. And I just went, wow, I eat that stuff every day. I never would have thought of that, right? That's what he constantly, his brain could not stop doing all that stuff. Yeah. And I remember one time I said to him, man, Mitch, I just love to have your brain for one day, just 24 hours to be able to look at the world that way.
Yeah.
And he goes, Kermit, I'd love to have your brain because then I wouldn't need drugs.
It's true. I mean... I think when you are wired that way, like these guys that are like, what do you even call it? Like an alien or something? I mean, the way his brain, it just doesn't work the same. And I do think like a lot of times in order to get to normal, they sort of like, it's a self-medication process, to like sort of not, because you got to turn that off at some point, right?
At some point you got to sleep, you got to balance your checkbook. Yeah, absolutely. You have to try and find some normality in it all, and it was hard for him to do. Like he always looked at it that way, and it was just amazing to watch him do it. Like one night he went open mic, and this bit, it just fell flat. But he was this whole bit about sitting with his friend on a rooftop, and this whole philosophical thing of looking out from the, I think maybe it was his house or his friend's house, and they're up on the roof and they're looking out and everything, and just talking about how you experience moments and yet still as friends, you're buddies, but you're competitive and everything. And it was this long drawn out story. And basically the punchline was his friend says, man, look at that. From here, you can see so far that there are people who don't even know. I can probably see, blah, blah, and talking this whole thing about how far his friend can see. And he goes, so I scoot it back a little because then I could see farther. And it was like, and the audience went, wait, you took us on a 5-minute ride for that? And we're in the back going, wow, that's brilliant, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's the way his brain thinks. His friend is like, wow, look at the world. And he's like, yeah, I'll look at it from back here because I'm better than you, right? Exactly. Right? Just a joke, but wow.
It's a Norm Macdonald, like, kind of misdirect, too.
Yes, but you're right. That's kind of just his mind is always that way in every situation. And I can imagine it probably was a lot of pressure.